Pope Urban II in 1095 preached the First Crusade, and that was because Jerusalem, he said, was held by the infidels. Well, Jerusalem had been held by the Muslims for hundreds of years, and there had never been that thought before.
Jerusalem, city of Christ's crucifixion, and the site of the great temple of the Jews. But it is also the third holiest city in Islam after Mecca and Medina. In Islamic tradition, Muhammad, during one of his revelations, was spirited from Mecca to Jerusalem on the creature called Burak. Where the Dome of the Rock now stands, Muhammad ascended to heaven. Other than the revelation of the Quran, it is the only miracle claimed by Muhammad.
He was given at that point the kind of beatific vision where he saw everything that had happened in the past and everything that was going to happen in the future.
And during this, he encounters Jesus and Moses, and so all of that links him again to Jerusalem, to the biblical tradition.
And of course, when he returned to Mecca, it was as if no time had passed.
But in the year 1099, Christian crusaders finally breached the walls of Jerusalem. That night, 30,000 Muslim defenders of the city were slaughtered, causing the streets to run red with blood. For 200 years, the lands of Islam faced 6 major incursions by European knights. But Islam's greatest threat did not come from the Christian crusaders of the West. It came from the Mongolian horsemen of the East. In 1258, the armies of the warlord Hulagu, grandson of Genghis Khan, swept down out of the Russian steppe to plunder the city of Baghdad. The destruction was unlike anything the Muslims had ever seen before. Leaving cities like Aleppo and Damascus in flames, the Mongols marched on to the shores of Palestine, where in 1260, a Muslim army from Egypt finally stopped them.
That was the high water mark of the Mongols as far as their advance toward the West. But their kingdom remained in Iran for some generations, and then some 40 years later, the Khan became a Muslim.
Still, the newly converted Mongols continued their conquests, taking Islam with them into Afghanistan, China, and India. Soon, the holy city of Mecca was crowded with Mongols and Turks, Uzbeks and Afghans, Mamluks and Moors, all on the sacred pilgrimage said to have been begun by Abraham. It is the last of the 5 pillars of Islam, the journey to Mecca, known as the Hajj.
Hajj is an experience which is very unique. It's a journey to God. You are journeying to God, going to His house.
The trip is required of all Muslims at least once in their lifetime. That is, if they are physically and financially able to go.
The Hajj, for me, was a big spiritual lift. I experienced something that made me more aware of the serious life that I had accepted, the life to be a Muslim.
2 forms of the pilgrimage exist. The Umrah is the lesser pilgrimage, taken alone or in small groups at any time of the year. The greater pilgrimage, the Hajj, always begins on the 8th day of Dhul Hijjah, the 12th month of the Islamic lunar calendar. Nearly 2 million Muslims take part. For a week prior to the Hajj, pilgrims flock to Saudi Arabia, eager to join in Islam's holiest rite.
We go on the Hajj, we reach a certain place, the Miqat, outside of Mecca, where you then have to put on the garb of a person who's on Hajj, which consists of 2 unsewn garments. They're called the ihram. Ihram from haram, that which is sacred. It's the shroud that you wear when you're buried. And the symbolism is, now from this point on, you're dead to the world and you're devoting yourself to God.
There's no barriers. When you're at Hajj, there's like no barriers. You can't tell the difference between who does what for a living, who's rich, who's poor, who drives a Mercedes, who drives a Toyota, whatever. That's the beautiful thing about it.
Upon arrival in Mecca, a ritual cleansing called an ablution prepares the faithful for the first station along the pilgrimage path, the Kaaba.
The house of God is in the middle, which is central in our life. And circumambulating around it means that God is center, the axis of our life.
Said to have been built more than 4,000 years ago by Abraham himself, the Kaaba, which actually means cube in Arabic, has been rebuilt many times over the centuries. The Kaaba is always kept draped in a black cloth called the kiswa. Replaced every year, it is embroidered by hand in gold thread with verses of the Quran.
And then we march between two small mountains, Safa and Marwa, reiterating what Hagar, the wife of Abraham, did when she was searching for water for her son, Ishmael.
Today, the entire length of this ancient path is protected under one roof and fully air-conditioned.
This march between two mountains 7 times back and forth represents our struggle in life.
The next morning, 2 million pilgrims descend upon the otherwise desolate plain of Arafat, 7 miles outside the city of Mecca. Here, the Muslims spend the entire day and much of the next night in quiet prayer and meditation, confessing their sins to God.
We stay 1 whole day in the desert with nothing with us. Just like the day we were born, we had nothing. We leave everything behind. Men, women, black, white, red, all sorts of languages. Imagine 2 million people.
On the final day of the Hajj, the pilgrims travel to the small town of Mina, outside Mecca. Here they stop to throw 7 tiny stones at a granite pillar. Based on a tradition established by the Prophet Muhammad, it symbolizes the stoning of the devil and the rejection of sin.
If someone performs the pilgrimage sincerely and correctly, then their sins are forgiven for what they did before, and that is considered a repentance that God hopefully will accept.
Before departure, a last prayer service is said around the holy Kaaba. So sacred, it is the object every Muslim must face while praying, no matter where in the world they may be.
For me, I'll never forget what it was like to see the Kaaba for the first time. You spend your life praying 5 times a day in the direction of Mecca. You spend your life envisioning it and remembering it as a place where Prophet Muhammad lived. I remember that I instantly started crying.